Let us now bring you a success story of a self-made entrepreneur who started off as a journalist, Nicolas Pompigne-Mognard, who founded the APO Group, a media relations consulting firm based in Africa and the Middle East. With his vast knowledge about the importance of media in Africa and African journalism, we look at how he has succeeded in his operations and his advice for those wanting to explore the African market for business. Nicolas, thanks so much for your time. I mean, let's talk about that African market for business. When you started off as a journalist, I'm interested in the appetite for African content, particularly from business people, from when you started out to where we find ourselves now in 2019.
Thank you for having me, Fifi. Well, indeed, in 2007, when I started APO Group, the appetite wasn't what it is now. We were, we were around that idea of Africa and the hopeless continent, and the entire economy story, etc. So most people were not interested in Africa. Most people were interested in Africa-related content, and I would say the most important point is that everybody was focusing on bad news, and nobody was understanding that there were good news in Africa. It's actually one of the reasons why I created APO Group, to create a feed of press releases, which, as you may know, press releases are mostly good news. Press releases are, company announcing a new investment in Africa, company announcing a new opening of a new office in Africa, etc. So the point was to create a news feed, a press release feed about Africa-related news, and to not only give those information to African journalists, but also to international journalists. And since we started that feed of press releases related to Africa, we've seen a huge surge in the interest.
Right.
Back to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'm quite interested in this correlation that you described between more information about the continent being disseminated and also faster growth of the continent. Can you explain the connection between the two?
Well, back in 2005, had a meeting with a series of meetings with the president of the African Development Bank at the time, Donald Kaberuka, and he told me that thing which became extremely important for me. He told me that the dissemination of African information is actually helping the continent, and so it's actually participating to the development of the continent. So dissemination of Africa-related economy information are helping the continent grow, and that's what we did. We are, by distributing the press releases of a company like Dangote, like EcoBank, and through our partnership with a company like Bloomberg or Reuters. That's what we do. We are showing the world by spreading the good news, let's say, that Africa is not only the AIDS and poverty and etc. And we are doing that since 2007 by sending tens of thousands of press releases. If you think about our clients, PricewaterhouseCoopers or McKinsey, for instance, I mean, we have been extremely lucky to distribute their Africa Attractiveness Report or their report regarding the growth of Africa, and by disseminating the press release not only to African media but also to the world. We are definitely participating on changing the narrative about the continent, and we see it now. We see that it's actually working.
Right, but there are some countries on the continent that are not as transparent or forthcoming with information, and particularly when it comes to bad information about perhaps their economies underperforming. Are you finding that sometimes this lack of access to information makes your job harder?
Well, as you may know, we are a media relation consultancy and a press release distribution service. So we have 300 clients. They are mostly multinational companies investing in Africa, but also African companies and personalities and institutions. So basically, we do not have any say or on the content they are asking us to disseminate on their behalf. But according to me, there is a lot of content. Obviously, Africa is 54 countries. There are disparity in the way governments are communicating, and I think in that sense, I think if there is an improvement, if there is something which needs to be improved in terms of communication, not only within the continent, but also from the continent to the world, is definitely the communication of the governments. I think the governments are, yes, somehow seen or considered as opaque and etc. And because they are not communicating very well. You have so many governments, for instance, for very small thing. You know, I'm traveling a lot across Africa. I'm meeting a lot of government, head of states, etc. And I have to explain a few very small, simple things like, okay, you are a francophone country. If you really want to attract investors, well, start by translating your press release in English. I mean, that would be a good start. And you will be on Bloomberg, you will be on Reuters terminal across all the world. So yeah, the governments really need to work on the way they are communicating.
Nicolas, thanks so much for those insights. So we will leave it there.